Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Hey, this is Hack the Entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I am your host, John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. My guest today is an author, web developer, SEO grunt, and an entrepreneur. During the past nearly 20 years, my guest has enjoyed a busy and successful career path. From starting a software company in Asia, raising over $1 million in venture capital, and exiting 3 years later, to helping dozens of U.S. startups and tech companies raise strategic venture capital, in fact, over $20 million at this point. Just over 11 years ago, though, he moved back to the U.S. and founded his current company, Kansas City Web Design and SEO. In this conversation, we discuss building out a content strategy, affiliate marketing, and why you need to focus on building a track record. Now, let's hack Phil Singleton. I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor for supporting the show, Brand24. 80% of consumers do their research or ask online before making a buying decision. I do that. You probably do that too. Brand24 gives you the listening tools to find these leads, identify where to promote products, and find customers before they find you. With social search, you can search the web for key topics, trends, or discussions. Brand24 enables you to reach customers so you can react, engage quickly to real-time comments about your brand. Imagine all the channels in one place. That's Brand24. Plus, with their Apple and Android apps, you can track customers, trends, and insights on the go. Find out why over 100,000 companies use Brand24 to monitor the web. Whether you're a one-person business, startup, or a Fortune 500 company, Brand24 helps you discover your digital footprint. Start hacking your brand at brand24.com/hack with a 14-day free trial. Plus, I got you a deal. Of course, you're a listener. As a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, you're going to get an exclusive 50% off your first 3 months. Get started today at brand24.com/hack. We are back with another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. And today we have a very, very special guest. Phil, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm super psyched to be here. Thanks, John.
Oh, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So maybe we should jump into it?
Fire away.
Excellent. Phil, I'm going to say you're a man that wears many hats. But today we're talking to Phil, the entrepreneur. So Phil, could you tell me, as an entrepreneur, what is the one thing that you do that you feel has been the biggest contributor to your successes so far?
I think probably the biggest thing, going all the way back, when you hear a question like this, all of a sudden your brain fills up with a lot of different things, and it's like, which one was the most? I'm gonna say probably the biggest thing is really just trying to focus on building up a track record and some kind of a proof that other people say that your product or services or you are valuable versus you saying it yourself. I think once that light came on and I kind of focused on that piece of doing that for building a business and trying to promote businesses, that's really, I think, what's helped more than anything.
Nice. So you mean testimonials in the simplest sense?
In the simplest sense, it'd be testimonials, but it goes more again further than that in terms of like building out a content strategy that gets out there, trying to get people to give you testimonials either on the work that you've done or specifically on like products and things you've done. So a testimonial could be on work that you've done, or literally trying to go out and say, okay, I want to get more LinkedIn reviews or more Google reviews for my product or service, and just having a review mindset. Do you know what I mean? So whenever I look at a person today or a potential anybody that I'm talking to, you for example, any new business, any prospect, any current, I'm trying to think, how can I get this person to become a raving fan? And I set that kind of as the goal in my head, as to bring my best game, bring my best ideas, bring my best service, and make that the end goal to get this guy to scream about me, and then work towards that and make that the end goal versus, hey, I want to work towards getting this project funded or work towards getting this invoice paid type of a thing. I think having that kind of a mindset really, really makes a difference. And it pays so much more of a return when you've got that kind of as the finish line.
So I agree. And I'm the same way in my business where I strive to make people become a raving fan of my show, of my products, of my services, whatever it happens to be. But I do feel like I drop the ball sort of in getting people to express that through a testimonial or through a review. So I don't know if I would just, because I've got enough. Like, my Amazon book has 100 and something reviews, which is amazing because I don't ask for them. But I wonder if does this mindset sort of extend out where somebody like myself should actually be pushed and sort of not thinking like it's a selfish thing and asking for those reviews?
Totally. Because I think if you think about it, well, there's two things we're covering right now. One is actually having that as the end goal. So whether or not they actually leave one or not, trying to make sure that that's what you're trying to accomplish, that is one thing. And the other thing is actually getting them. So in my opinion, I actually think that reviews are super powerful. I think they're the most powerful things that are out there. And when we say reviews, I'm talking about anything and anything that's out there where you can say, hey, here's an example, of my work, or somebody actually, saying something great about it. Super powerful in terms of, I think that's what pretty much everybody looks for in terms of making a decision. And the bigger the ticket, the bigger the stakes, the more I think those reviews and that kind of proof comes into helping people make a decision, right? But on the other hand, I think as powerful as they are, they're actually super rare. Okay. You mentioned you have 80 or 100 reviews on your book, right?
Yeah.
My guess is you've probably sold thousands and thousands of them.
I have.
So a relatively small percentage of people actually stepped up and left a review. So it seems like a lot because in the grand scale of selling books, that is actually a lot, but it's really a small amount of people that left a review. And it gets even, I think, harder when you get out of like the products or lower ticket items where you've got, big platforms like Amazon or whatever. If you're a local business or a regional business and you're going to try and get people, those businesses really struggle to try and get that proof up there. Of course, when you screw up, people are willing to, take all sorts of extra time to make sure that everybody they know knows about it and maybe signs up in new platforms just to kind of get the word out. But in terms of people paying a fair price for whatever it is, a service, a course, a book, or whatever it is, in general, it's tough to get people to say good things about you because we all want it, we all push it, but it's just not an easy thing to do. So I think you got to be proactive about it. You actually should have a system in place that's just part of your daily routine. So you're not, and then also it takes tenacity and persistence, right? You got to follow up and ask. Sometimes you got to ask 2 or 3 times. Now, in my case, for the business that I'm in right now, this is the biggest bang for the buck thing that's out there, right? You get a small business and, we've got tons of examples where you get a millennial business owner who comes into a traditional business, builds up a nice website, gets 50 reviews over the guys who have been doing it for 30 years. All of a sudden he starts stealing market share, right? It's that simple sometimes because the guys that are out there doing it are still struggling trying to figure out why the outbound marketing techniques aren't working. But the younger guys coming in it, they don't buy off of printer rate or that kind of stuff. So they jump right into it. And you can see the proof right there when they buy into it and they see it, that it can really make a big difference. But, you ask anybody, I think it's really hard. I think reviews are super, super powerful. And I think they're pretty hard to get, even if you're good at, asking them and working them into the routine.
Yeah. And when you said sort of through there, you said, actually, you should have a system in place to make sure that you are actively doing this. Are you within sort of your business structure? Are you a very systematized thinker and I guess structure of your company?
Man, I was thinking of that on the way in here. Like the parts that I think that I'm really good at in my business and the parts I think I'm not so good at. And some other people that I think are probably better at it. I think I'm really super good at like the lead generation piece of it, but I think about like the operational, inside, maybe even to some extent trying to scale the business a little bit more, probably not so good at, but I guess I'm really good at systemizing the parts of business that I'm really passionate about and not so good at some of the ones that I'm less passionate about. So how's that for an answer?
Yeah, that's a great answer actually, because I think people want it to be black or white. Like either you're good at systematizing or you're not. But really it's, if you don't sort of have that inclination to that side of the business anyways, I think it's pretty hard to try and get your head. You really have to have a deep understanding of something to systematize it. So yeah, I think that's kind of a perfect answer. So you are the founder now of Kansas City Web Design and SEO for over 11 years at this point. But this also isn't your first sort of kick at the old business can, if you will. So I was wondering, Phil, if you could sort of take us back sort of to the beginning of when you found out that you were going to become an entrepreneur and sort of the first business that you started.
Well, real quickly, I mean, I came out of school, with a degree in finance, and I got a job with an insurance company in Hartford, Connecticut. And I was there for 3 years. And it was basically the end of that third year. I was like, I'm dying here. You know what I mean? I was in a beige building, working in the insurance industry, in a beige cubicle, beige carpet, wearing beige pants.
Oh, man.
And you know what I mean? The guys around me were in the insurance industry for 20, 30 years. I cannot do this. And, back then it was still a pretty good payday. And each year that kind of went by, you figure, gosh, I'm kind of getting pulled into this career here that it was just there because it was the job that, they came to the campus and I interviewed and they happened to be the one that hired me and I needed to get money. Do you know what I mean? But all of a sudden you start getting pulled in. Sometimes the things that come in front of you start pulling you in a direction that you had no intention of doing. So what I did at that time was like, I just can't do this. I don't know if I partly lost my mind or whatever, but I actually figured out, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to pack my bags and I'm going to move to Asia and I'm going to study Chinese. And that's what I did. Just literally, my parents thought I lost my mind. I went and I did it, moved to Taiwan, studied Mandarin. And that kind of, I felt was probably changed the trajectory of my entire life, because I probably could have been stuck down this path of like, being a corporate employee, which I know I wouldn't have been. I know a lot of people are happy doing that and that's great, but it just wasn't for me. But I felt like I was kind of getting sucked in, the gravitational force of corporate America. It's pulling me in.
It pulls.
Right. So I did that. I went out. Okay. That whole changed my Chinese. I went to go get, and then got my MBA. I got a job out of school where I essentially back in the .com era was helping North American companies get strategic funding in Asia, right? So that was a blast because it was, people were throwing money around all over the place. And, here I am, a Westerner in Asia, fluent in Chinese, raising funding. It was a blast for that 3 or 4 year run while it lasted because the internet .com bubble burst and funding dried up and kind of the economy went dry for quite some time. But I ended up taking that. At that point, I had to do something else. I basically started to do some of my own business development in Asia while I was still, working in Taipei. So that really kind of put me on the path of where I am today. Through doing some work independently for some software companies, I actually worked for this company called 321 Studios that built a consumer software product called DVDX Copy that was kind of like the Napster of its day. It let people, copy DVD movies that they bought, right? So Soul was enormously successful in the US until Hollywood studios came after them and basically shut them down. What ended up happening is I took what was left of the company that those folks that owned it invested in me in Taiwan to build a company so that we could still sell it throughout the rest of the world in markets where it was still legal to do so. And that was my first startup business. So those guys put $1 million into the business. We had, 25 employees, literally just fell into my lap, right? Because I had been doing some work for them on business development and they were just like, okay, Hollywood's shutting us down, build this up. And that was a great opportunity. Of course, Hollywood then took their battle, or the DMCA battle, where they went, to the rest of the world, ended up lobbying other countries such as Taiwan. And we ended up having to sell that business. So it was great experience. It ended up being a nice payday, but it wasn't like a home run where I go out and buy my island, quit and, develop my own venture capital fund type of thing. It wasn't anything like that, but it was a great opportunity because what it did open my eyes up to was, this is going back more than 15 years ago. Most of our sales at that time, when I was running the Asian kind of restart of this business, were coming from affiliate marketers who were essentially running online communities and forums and kind of the precursor to blogs and stuff. Those guys had just affiliate banner ads. They'd click through to us. We'd pay them, the big ones, 50% of sale, right? So even back then, we were writing checks out for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month. Meanwhile, and giving them 50%, the big ones, 50% of the sale, right, on a $99 piece of software. So on my business, I had 25 employees. We had office space. We had investors. Our little piece of that 50% got shrunk down to almost nothing. And here are the guys back then that were paying 10 cents a click on AdWords back when that was happening and having all this traffic and kind of stuff. We're getting the majority of the sale. I'm probably only working hours a day, if that, right? Because they had lifestyle jobs back then when it was good. So that really woke me up and I was like, okay. So again, we sold the business. My wife and I kind of packed up our bags, moved back to the Midwest to start a family. And I took that experience. A lot of it was still being driven by Google, right? Because people were searching for this kind of stuff online. And I was like, okay, I'm going to see how I can apply these things we were doing at international and global level and start taking them, to small businesses where we ended up moving back, which was here in Kansas City. So how's that?
Wow. That was a whirlwind. From your
Stop.
parents thought you lost your mind because you went to Asia, but then you did well. You got an MBA and you got married and you started a business, you sold it, and you moved back. I'd say that's pretty good.
Pretty wild path, right? It wasn't the traditional.
Exactly. But it typically isn't the traditional. I don't even know if there is a traditional sort of path to entrepreneurship at this point. Do you feel that through all this now, let's just sort of pinpoint onto going back for the MBA. There's lots of people with finance degrees that start businesses because you know the numbers and you can get in there. But going back and getting an MBA during this sort of time, do you see that as sort of like a catalyst that has allowed you to now grow and scale your business?
No, I really don't. I think really when I look back into it and actually re-answer the question you originally answered me, I think when I came out of school, I was a super introvert, and I still am to some degree because that's just the way I think I was born. But I was like paralyzed by anxiety where I could literally barely talk to people in business. I would just start sweating profusely. And I think a lot of it stemmed just from not being confident. So being able to kind of go out, jump out into the world without a safety net and make something for myself, I think ended up giving me a lot of confidence to be like, hey, I think I can pretty much do anything. And that really, I think, did more for my, for a career than actually getting that MBA. I think is great and it's nice, but I think a lot of people just end up doing it because they don't know what else to do. One, and two, back when I was considering getting one, it seemed like if you were going to do something in the corporate traditional path, that could give you an edge on moving up the chain. Where, today it's like, no, I don't really think it really helped me too much at all. I'm sure I learned some stuff and it helped me get kind of my head around the holistic view of marketing and how certain types of business interact. But I don't really think of all the other things that I've gone through that have actually, I think, really helped out. That would probably be way down the list.
Wow.
And it was expensive.
And that. So I love that feeling of I can pretty much do anything now. Like from anxiety ridden to can barely speak to people to I can pretty much do anything. I think that I would absolutely agree with you that is an essential sort of trait of the entrepreneur, is to somehow trick ourselves to believe that about ourselves.
I'm going to break it down a little even further. At first for a little while, I was like, I guess everybody talks about the imposter syndrome and having that. I look at myself as a shameless imposter at this point. I am thriving. I've got a great business here in Kansas City that does, I think, really well for being a middle market. And I'm competing with people that that are probably a lot more talented than I am on the coding and design. And I'm not formally, I don't have any formal training in design. I don't have any formal training in coding. I came into this business that I'm in right now with just business experience. You know what I mean? I treat like this part of it as a business, and I'm able to basically take market share from folks that are kind of doing more of the textbook approach to like, building websites or doing digital marketing, that kind of stuff. So I think people should, if they feel like an imposter or something, they can't do something. Part of that, you got to turn it around and maybe turn it into pride. If you can come in and do well in a business that you have less, I guess, maybe technical foundational expertise in, that's something to run up the flagpole. Do you know what I mean? Not necessarily be ashamed of.
That's absolutely true. So when you came back from Asia with your wife, you went back to Kansas City. And is this like, how long between the time you land back in North America to the time that you actually acquired your first customer for your new business?
We came back, bought a house. I had some, like I said, some cash flow to work with from the previous successes that we'd had. I actually ended up buying a sports car that I never had. I wanted to have something that had stick shift. And I ended up taking it into an auto detailer from the guy that I bought it from to get it detailed. And it was just this guy that was doing $25, $50 details for dealers and basically making almost no money off of it. So I said, dude, you need to start getting, direct to the end customer, because you could be getting $100 or $200 a sale versus, just getting the crumbs from the dealers that don't want to pay anything to get those cars prepped for sale. So I ended up, this is like 2005, I think it was. I ended up, again, complete imposter. I said, I know I can do this. I've been doing this kind of SEO, learning it from the outside in, back in Asia. I went out and kind of self-taught my way to do a little silly front page site for him. Okay.
I remember.
And remember that? I figured that out on my own. It wasn't too hard to figure it out. I got it, and I got it ranked. His phone started ringing. He's like, dude, you're changing my business. You're changing my life. Boom. Right at that moment, when I got that phone call from him, I knew that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my career, because it was just so fulfilling. I knew I could make money off of it. It was more one of these lifestyle things. I think that I could kind of work or, not have to go to a corporate thing and do it. And I was like, that was really much the time. So it's probably about 6 months when I came back, was just kind of fiddling around. And, after a while you sit down and think about what you want to do because you start getting bored, I guess, is like you start gravitating, I think, to where your interests are and see if you can make something happen. But again, some of it's like, the software company that I had, I guess I kind of made my own luck. That fell into my lap. The detailing guy, was that an opportunity that fell into my map, or did I make that opportunity because I reached out and said, guy, you should be doing this type of thing? Not really sure, but I made the most out of out of that situation when it came in. And really that little auto detailing website has turned into a nice 7-digit agency here kind of in the Midwest. So
yeah, and I would say that you put yourself in the way of luck because you put yourself out there, made that connection, made that offer even for the person, and then executed on it. So this sort of like creating your own luck and also like putting yourself in places and then taking the action kind of segues us nicely into a section of the show I like to call projects, Phil. So projects is a loose term, but you also have a really interesting new project. So I would love to use that as sort of the framework for this. You recently co-wrote a book, SEO for Growth, with John Jantz from Duct Tape Marketing.
Exactly.
Who's obviously a huge name in the marketing world. One of the, I think, first marketing books I ever read a long time ago. And it's still on my shelf today. So I would love to know, with what you have going on, everything right now, it sounds like you still sort of focus on the lifestyle aspect of your business as well as growth at the same time. But I would like to know, and again, we can kind of tie back to systems, like if it's like a written sort of process you go through, or if it's just an internal gut process. But with all sort of the things out there that you could do, all the projects you could take on within your business, existing business, or new ones, how, when an idea for a book like SEO for Growth comes around, what is the process that you go through to determine that it is worth your time, energy, and resources?
I think really with anything that I try and do now is to try and figure out if you're going to take on any new project, there's got to be multiple or some kind of a cascade of win-wins on it. So it increases the opportunity that's going to produce an ROI. So that's how I looked at it. And I was like, okay, I have this relationship with John because I became a duct tape marketing certified consultant. I had some proximity, built a relationship with him. And I was like, geez, if I write a book, it can help me increase my authority. It can get some things out there and be a launching pad for some other businesses. So that ended up pretty much being a no-brainer because, again, when we wrote the book, I mean, very little of it, I think, had to do with having an actual book to sell and like earning royalties off of it. It was really more about using the book, using John, using his relationships to create a website asset through the SEOforgrowth.com asset that could build some trust and authority, and more importantly, some targeted traffic and SEO rankings that we can then use to leverage and create other businesses off of, right? And what we ended up doing is we did that. We wrote the book. It became a bestseller. We sold thousands and thousands of copies, got us some great stuff. We built authority on the website. Then what we ended up starting to do is we started to create these lead generation child sites off of it, right? So we built the first one called stlouis.seoforgrowth.com. Then we built one called atlanta.seoforgrowth.com. And they're just basically child sites off of a WordPress multi-site install that essentially have a bunch of content that's relative to the people in that market. And sure enough, within 3-4 months, you type in St. Louis SEO, it's ranked number 1 in that market, starts generating leads. 2 months ago, we launched Atlanta off of, I think, again, number 2 starting to launch. Now, come 2 weeks ago, we sign up 15 more cities to type it in. So really the whole idea on that piece was, how do you get into a project and figure out ways that are going to create lots of win-wins? And again, what it's done for me is I wrote a book. It's given me access to get on great podcasts like yours, right? I'm building my authority by leveraging other people's influence like John's, who then also got to piggyback off all the relationships he has, create a great website, get more access to people, to more traffic. And really, it's been giving me a way to take the model that I've used here in Kansas City to build and then try and figure out how can I scale what I've done here? Well, it's really hard to scale when you're in one market and your name's Kansas City Web Design, right? But we could have one called SEO for Growth and then figure out a way to teach and educate the people that we bring on, make them licensed consultants, and then help them generate SEO leads by also having the credibility of the kind of the book that we wrote to sell off of too. And that was kind of my way to figure out a way to kind of scale some of the things that we've done quickly. And again, it's just going through. So how do we that product in particular was okay. I didn't want to just, and I think that's some people do with things, right? They just, I want to write a book just so I can have a book. It's a vanity project, or maybe I can make some money off of it. Well, that's really not what books I think are about, at least for folks in our space these days. It's got to be about a lot more than that. Otherwise, it can eat up a lot of your time, and you can leave a lot of opportunity and money on the table if you don't take advantage of all those type of things.
So does a book, in your opinion, have to have a huge sort of back end, like, I guess, offering behiing it? Because I think a book, it's like the front end to something massive that I had no idea about until you just told me. It's amazing.
Well, I think anybody that writes a book these days, there's a lot of missed SEO opportunity when they don't tie it directly to their home base website, or maybe even create a new website. Because by nature of the way that you launch them, they become these little lead generations authority websites just from the buzz and the things that naturally end up happening by the time that you launch them. Now, of course, again, in the case of our book, I really came at it as an SEO person. I said, I'm going to optimize the hell out of this thing. So if you look through and thumb through the book that we wrote, I mean, we got 50 people to endorse it, but it wasn't because we wanted to have, pages and pages of endorsements. It was because I wanted those people that were influencers in marketing, to, when the book came around, to say, hey, thanks for the endorsement. Would you guys mind promoting this on social media? A lot of them did that. I mean, a lot of them did it in their email, and we basically used that, it's like endorsement marketing to go have them do that. We actually named an expert at the end of each chapter. Same thing. They became a part of the book. They came into it. A lot of them were happy to help us promote it. We included over 200 different references in there, contacted each one of them. And when the book time came around, so we did all this stuff in the book that had all these little kind of, little kind of trinkets in there to try and either tie back to the website or give other people reasons to promote it, to link to it, or promote it on their social media. And that really helped create a nice asset that we're then again able to roll this up into a new business opportunity that's got a lot more revenue generating potential than just getting, $5 royalties on a book or every time we sell one or whatever it is.
Right. And I mean, as a full entire project and sort of business launching platform, it makes perfect sense. Am I correct in assuming that you made the pitch to John about this, or did he come to you with this idea?
I pitched him in the beginning, because the way it came around was I had every intent. I joined this duct tape marketing group about 3 years ago. I went to the first meeting, and one of the guys was in there, handed a book out that he wrote, and I thought, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm gonna put that on my career bucket list. And I ended up getting invited into another project from that group, and 6 months later I had my own best-selling book that was called Local Lead Generation, and that worked out. I was like, holy cow. But it's like a lot of this stuff these days. I mean, I read in your book where it's like, you got the business loans are now kind of replaced by I think you said, or somebody in there says, the $100 startup. How relatively easy it is to get a website going, to write a book and publish through CreateSpace and leverage Amazon. But how easy it is actually, since I've been doing podcasts, I'm just like, this is the one thing that I've been like, holy cow, why haven't I been podcasting? Because I've been doing it for like the last month, and I'm just like, I see all the untapped SEO potential in it, and I'm just like, wow, I really feel behind the eight ball on this kind of stuff too. So it was the same thing with the book. The book came in, I saw the opportunity, I saw how easy it was. Went through one process where I went through it with a group of people, and I kind of worked out the kinks, and I saw a lot of missed opportunity. Then I went and kind of did my own. I originally pitched John to be like, hey, can you do the forward on this and maybe help me endorse and promote it? And I said, I got this other idea if you want to be all in. And we talked about it. At that case, he really said, holy, that's a great idea. And then we ended up kind of rewriting it. He wanted, because his name was going to be on it. It was a lot different than the first version that I had on it. And it took a little bit longer to launch it. But yeah, that's how it is. It kind of went as a manuscript. And then it turned into this whole, business basically.
Right. And my guess is that he's probably been offered to co-author books before, and he's written his own books, but the idea that it has this like huge business potential behind it makes it a really smart project to take on, and makes it a really easy pitch for him to say yes to.
Exactly. Well, in this case, he'd already seen some of my work for the 2 or 3 years that I've been trying. I've been doing on his podcast. I've been doing guest blog posting on that. I've been helping out and mentoring people within his. He's got like 120 certified consultants in there. So I really kind of had to prove my case. But at certain times, I think he realized like, okay, at least in this niche that I am, I've developed some kind of trust and authority within his eyes. And then it also became a little bit, I think, easier for him to at least for the topic that we were writing about, to kind of spend some time evaluating it versus just kind of coming out of the blue and say, I wrote this great book. Will you co-author it with me type of thing?
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Phil. Well, this has been an absolute blast. I do want to wrap up on one final question for you, if I can. It's this idea I'm working with calling the entrepreneurial gap, which seems to be, after talking to hundreds of entrepreneurs, there seems to be this gap, which you actually kind of alluded to earlier on. No matter what we accomplish ourselves personally, it seems like we always are projecting our successes into the future. So even when you said you exited a company in Asia, prefaced it where you didn't get to buy an island, you didn't get to do all these things. And so from the outside, it looks really successful, yet to us, it's always, our success always comes next. In 3 months when you sell that many books, in 6 months when you stand on that stage, whatever it happens to be, we feel like our success is there, yet you and I both know, Phil, that seconds before you hit any goal, you're going to set 5 or 10 bigger ones into the future. So you've come a long ways since your parents thought you were completely insane, going through Asia and now returning and becoming successful back here in America. I would love it if you could stop right now, look behind you, the highs, the lows, the wins, and the losses, and tell me how you feel about this whole journey up until today.
I feel like I'm always learning. I feel like looking back, I feel, gosh, part of what drew me to jumping into this was in the venture capital kind of business that I was in. I saw how these guys were like great opportunists, right? I mean, they've got money and they basically kind of jump in, grab large shares of a company and try and capture the brilliance of other folks, and just basically by being good opportunists, right? So, which really helps them participate in great entrepreneurial ventures without having to do much work, because they've got the money, or based on, I guess, other great entrepreneurs. But, I guess as I look back, I just think that, is there any way that it could have condensed the time frame? And I'm actually a little bit jealous of today's would-be entrepreneurs, because when I started to kind of jump onto my path, I literally had to jump out there without any safety net, I feel. But today, I mean, you can literally have a job and go out and start 2 businesses tonight and test them for very little money if you have, the ambition and the drive and the goal to do that. And we didn't have that 15. I mean, you couldn't do that. You know what I mean? You couldn't do anything. Even if I write a book, you probably had to come out with thousands of dollars, find a publisher, pre-buy a lot of things. I mean, so there's all these things that you can do that can accelerate and help you test ideas and move, I think, really quickly, that we didn't have back then. So I think that's one of the things that I'm looking back. So I'm like, geez, what could you do that you've learned over the last 15 or 20 years and have that be condensed faster so that you can accelerate your next idea and get it launched and profitable much faster than, maybe than the one that you're succeeding on right now? Do you know what I mean? If I could turn back the clock, I mean, geez, if I knew what I do now, I wouldn't have started with a front page website, right? I wouldn't be able to do some other stuff and accelerate it and go a lot quicker and grow, faster than, probably be a lot bigger than I am right now. But it's not the way it is. Now you go out, you get all sorts of places you can go to hire people. This gig economy that we have is great. And I look back and I was like, I want to say jealous, but to some degree I am. You can literally come out of school, get a good paying job and start working on your side hustle and keep working on them until you find the one that you got that burning passion for and it's got some ROI and get it rolling. So that's kind of what I look back at as, sometimes it feels like time might have been wasted, and I wish that I could have accelerated the process a lot faster.
Fair enough. The beauty of it, I see, Phil, is that right now at this very moment, you are sort of the condensed version of every experience you've had. So
that's a nice way
now
to put it.
Anything you start right from this moment is that version. People starting, no matter if they have the technology or not, and they can work a job and start 2 companies tonight, they still don't have your knowledge and your experience.
Sure. That's fair.
All right. Well, enough boasting about you. We've got to talk about your business in passing, Phil. Can you now specifically tell the audience about SEO for Growth, where to track it down, and then also your main business, where they can find that?
Sure. I mean, SEO for Growth we've got SEOforgrowth.com. You can go check that out. It's up on Amazon. If you're a Prime member, it's free. So, you can go download that get it for free on Kindle, come back to the website. We've actually got a little form you can fill out, and we've got a 3 ebook bundle where the guys at Yoast gave us one of their popular, ebooks on website optimization. We got a very popular one from Larry Kim at WordStream for AdWords. And then we've also got one on local SEO. So there's this 3 ebook bundle pack that comes along with a version of the Amazon book that you buy. So that's up there, but you gotta get that at the website and then check it out. And if you're interested, I guess some people get a lot of calls and interest on people who want to either set up a side business or a new business in digital marketing or SEO in one of the cities that we're not operating in right now. Check out like an St. Louis SEO for growth, or do a search for a St. Louis SEO or Atlanta SEO. See if you might be able to have an interest in one of these kind of in your cities. And then if you want to see kind of how I started all, kcwebdesigner.com is my business. We're kind of going through a rebranding right now, and I've had that site up for 3 or 4 years. So it's looking a little stale, but check it out in 30 days. It'll be a lot more modern. But I basically built a nice business on that thing. We get anywhere from 5 to 15 leads here locally per day. And it's just based on, kind of doing this SEO stuff that we do and trying to help people build revenue generating websites versus just the digital brochure style ones that a lot of web designers kind of pitch out there.
Nice. kcwebdesigner.com, seoforgrowth.com. I'll also find links to the Atlanta.seoforgrowth.com and the St. Louis, but you could also just do searches for St. Louis.
Yeah, see if they come up as high as
during the conversation, I decided to take you up on it. I did it for Atlanta, and you were like number 4 or something. Sweet. That's coming from Canada, so there you go. If you were local, it's probably a lot more, but that's still pretty impressive. SEO for Growth, the Amazon link, I'll also find that, and I'll put it onto the show notes for you on Hack the Entrepreneur, or you can just look it up on Amazon and check out the book. Phil, once again, thank you so much for stopping by. Thanks for sharing so openly. And please just keep doing what you're doing because it is awesome to watch.
Cool. Thank you so much.
How would you like the ability to detect sales opportunities online in real time? Brand24 gives you the listening tools to find these leads, identify where to promote your products, and find customers before they find you. Start detecting sales today with Brand24. Go to brand24.com/hack. That's brand24, the numbers 2 and 4.com/hack. And you're going to get a 14-day free trial. Plus, as a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, you're going to get an exclusive 50% off your first 3 months. Once again, that's brand24.com/hack. All right, that was fun. We did it. We made it. Here we are. It's time. It's time. It's time to find the hack. Let's do it.
I was like paralyzed by anxiety where I could literally barely talk to people in business. I would just start sweating profusely. And I think a lot of it stemmed just from not being confident. So being able to kind of go out, jump out into the world without a safety net and make something for myself, I think ended up giving me a lot of confidence to be like, hey, I think I can pretty much do anything.
And that's the hack. Phil. I love this. This is cool. This is something that a lot of us struggle with, right? So this idea of like paralyzed by anxiety, not having the confidence to do the things you want to do because you haven't done the things you want to do. That's literally the reason why this happens. And when I say it like that, it probably sounds kind of ridiculous, right? You're paralyzed and scared to do the things you want to do in business, in life, because of the fact that you don't have the confidence that you can do it because you haven't done the things you want to do in business and in life. It's a cart before the horse. So the way Phil did it was he went to school, he got an MBA, not because of what it taught him necessarily, but because it gave him the confidence to go out and do his own thing. And then he did that, he had some success, and now that gave him confidence to literally take over the world and do whatever he possibly wanted to do. So for some people, it's going to be getting an MBA. It was not for me at all. It was starting small businesses, little tiny ones that worked and taught me that, wow, I can do this and just sort of scale it up. That's totally what I push people to do. That's what I push you to do. Start small business. Start a blog. Create a little web browser. Like not a browser, but a browser extension or a tiny piece of software, or write a small ebook, or create a small course teaching somebody something like that, and learn the skill of selling. Learn the skill of selling something online to somebody else who you will never meet in person. And from there, scale it up. Take those successes, the small ones, and build off of them until they become something bigger. Or, as Phil did, go to school, get an MBA, and then have that confidence. But you have to find a way to overcome it, because the reason that Phil couldn't do these things because he didn't have the confidence. And he didn't have the confidence because he hadn't done the things. You need to find your way around. Either fake your way through confidence to yourself and just convince yourself you can do it, which I absolutely hope you can do, or find small steps to take to the bigger goal that you want at the end. Phil, thank you so very, very much. All right, here's the thing. I need reviews. You're listening. I appreciate it so much, but I need you to go and leave the show a review. If you are listening to this on an Apple device, hacktheentrepreneur.com/iTunes will take you right to where you need to go to leave a rating and a review. If you are on an Android device, hacktheentrepreneur.com/Android will take you to Google Play. If you're not on Google Play, then leave it wherever you listen to this right now. Please, absolutely. I appreciate it, and it will help so damn much. That's hacktheentrepreneur.com/iTunes or /Android, depending on what device you're on. Please, thank you. All right, it's been fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to stop by. You know, or you better know, that I absolutely appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been cool. I hope you come back next time. But until next time, please keep hacking the entrepreneur.